Welcome into this exciting episode of Real Biz. I am your host, Bubba Starts, and with me today from Tap Out Corner, Zach Werre. Zach, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, Bubba. Thanks for having me on.
Man, it's such a pleasure to have you. I know that we cross over in the content creation space with some good mutual friends there with Below Zero Wrestling and everything that they're doing up there. Huge shout out to Nick Stokey off the top of the show, who kind of connected me with you. And this episode's been a long time coming, man. So glad we finally get to do this.
Yeah, likewise. I'm looking forward to talking and getting to know you a little bit more, too.
Excellent. Well, off the top of the show, I'd love to just give you a little bit of time here to give us a little bit of your backstory. Obviously, you're working in the YouTube space, a content creator, your channel over 1 million subscribers now, which is just amazing to watch that. But I'd like to know kind of a little bit of the lead up to that. And then obviously we'll talk about everything you got going on now.
Gotcha. Yeah. How much time do you got? Basically, a lot of my work and all around revolves around YouTube. It's content creation, but YouTube is the core essence of it. And so going back to how I first got introduced to YouTube, that's essentially where it all starts. Back in 2006, at my church, there was a buddy of mine. We always would hang out after service, and then one day he came up, like, hey, have you heard of this website? People upload videos to it. People share. Just ordinary people can upload anything they want, and it's this website called YouTube. Yeah, never heard of it. He shows me some funny videos, and I'm amazed. Like, man, you can. Like, anyone can post stuff on here. They can make something and put it online, and essentially the world can see it. And so that just really captured my imagination. And I thought that was so cool that, like, you could just make stuff and build an audience. You could tell stories, do essentially whatever you wanted, and put it online and have people see it. So for, I'd say, probably the next, like, 5 to 10 years, I was really just experimenting with it, trying out all sorts of things. None of it really ever landed or stuck. I would do videos talking about video games. I was really into video games at the time. I did some videos with little Lego figures. I did what's called stop motion animation, where you take the figure, take a picture, move the figure, take a picture, move the figure, take a picture. Did that for a while, just a ton of different stuff. And none of it, amounted to much. But the big thing during that time was just I was learning a lot, learning about, video editing, and just learning about how do you do a voiceover? How do you get B-roll? Just learning about all sorts of different types of videos, how to make videos, and also just what type of content to make on YouTube. And I'd say the real big turning point was in 2015. I started a YouTube channel called Tap Out Corner. And by that point, I'd probably done over 15 different YouTube channels. I stopped and then deleted and then moved on to something different. So I finally decided to give wrestling a try because I had become a big wrestling fan. I was like, hey, I like wrestling. I know wrestling. Why not make a YouTube channel about wrestling? And so I did that in 2015 after I graduated from high school. And I was kind of off and on with it for a while, but it was the channel that had gotten the most attention. I remember I put together my very first video, and it was a lot of work. I really struggled with the voiceover. I had a script, but just being able to say it and not mess up was like a real big struggle for me. It still is. But it was a lot of work getting that first video done. But I just said I'll finish it, and then I'm never doing this again. This is way too much work. This Tap Out Corner channel isn't going to work out. I'm not going to be able to do this. I have to do something different. But I uploaded the video, forgot about the channel, and then like 2 weeks later, I went and visited the video, and I think it had like 10,000 views on it. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe we need to keep doing this Tap Out Corner wrestling YouTube channel a little bit more. And so I did a few more videos, and like I said, I was kind of off and on with it. I wasn't sure if I really wanted to dig into it, if this was the direction I wanted to go. And then in July 2019, I was graduated from college. I was in between jobs, and again, I was off and off the YouTube channel, the Tap Out Corner channel. I'd post a few videos that I'd be gone for a few months, and so it was sitting at about 20,000 subscribers at that point in July 2019. And so in between jobs, I was still trying to learn about YouTube. So I was like, I think I still want to do this YouTube thing. If nothing else works, if no other jobs work out, I could make this YouTube thing work. And so I'd still been learning about YouTube, about, how do you get views on YouTube? What makes for a good YouTube video? And so finally in July 2019, when I was in between work, I decided to let's give this Tap Out Corner channel a try again. And then in that first month, I think I made about like $700 from the Tap Out Corner channel. And so I'm thinking like, yeah, it's not like, can't live off that, but hey, this could be a great part-time job. So from that point on, July 2019, I kept up with the channel, kept posting regularly, usually trying to get at least one video out every single week. And then slowly from there, I started building the channel. It started becoming a little bit more stable of an income. And slowly but surely, I kind of started just, okay, I don't need to do this job anymore. I don't need to do this gig anymore. And slowly but surely, it just became more and more of a full-time job and kind of turned into a career for me. And so eventually the Tap Out Corner channel became a full-time job. And I think it really happened probably in about 2020, because I was working at the Premier Center, the Day Sanford Premier Center in Sioux Falls as an AV tech. And then, as we all know, in March of 2020, COVID hits, everything gets shut down. So I'm kind of essentially out of a job, for the foreseeable future at that point. So then, like, well, I can still do these YouTube videos, so I might as well really dig into that. And then, and luckily by that point, a few months later, they eventually started slowly reopening the Premier Center, doing some stuff. But at that point, I was just like, you know what, I think I'm gonna just zone in on this YouTube thing now and really focus in on that. And so that was kind of the moment where it really transitioned from being, a part-time job, a side gig, to being a full-time job, full-time career. And so just kind of kept growing the channel, experimenting, learning more about how to make better videos, how to grow an audience. And then kept doing that with Tap Out Corner, doing a few different things here and there. I'm someone who likes to just try different things, even outside of wrestling. But then the next big moment for myself or my career was in April of 2023. I'd been doing the Tap Out Corner channel. That was, my full-time gig at that point. But I wanted to do more. And one of the things I noticed from the Tap Out Corner channel was the videos that tend to do the best on the Tap Out Corner channel. I always did wrestling videos, list videos, top 10s, and I would do videos like the secrets of WWE exposed. How do they do the buried alive match? How do they hit each other with chairs and not, kill each other? How does Triple H hit someone with a sledgehammer and not kill them? I did videos like that, and those videos always tend to do the best. The ones that were kind of sharing how the wrestling business, how WWE, how it actually works. And so while I was working on those videos, I'm like, man, someone should just get a former WWE wrestler, someone who's actually in that ring, in that company, knows exactly how it works. Someone should just get with like a person like that and do a YouTube channel with them where they just talk about from firsthand experience, how the business works, how the weapons work, all that stuff. And so, I'm like, well, I could do that if I could find someone who's a former WWE wrestler. And there lies the trouble. Like, how do you find someone who's a former WWE wrestler? Like, how do you find someone who would, A, has the experience, has the knowledge, B, has the skills, the skill set of being able to talk to the camera and present, and C, would want to work with you. People just typically don't want to work with people they don't know. They want to work with people they do know. And so that was always the hurdle for me with starting that this kind of project, this former WWE wrestler explains, tells all YouTube channel. So, but it kept itching at me. I thought, man, I feel like this is a great idea. I feel like there's some big potential with this YouTube channel. And so in April 2023, I finally just said, I'm just going to reach out to someone and see if we can make it happen. I'm assuming they're going to say no. Some random person reaches out to them. They're probably not even going to respond, but at least if I reach out, I can tell myself I tried. So in April 26, 2023, I reached out to a former WWE wrestler that I knew. I'd followed his career. I was into his career. His name was Maven. For wrestling fans, they probably know him as the first winner of the Tough Enough competition show. That was a competition WWE did in 2001 where they took ordinary people, trained them, and then the winner would get a WWE wrestler contract. And Maven was the first winner of that. And so he went on to have about a 4-year career with WWE wrestling for them. And so, but I was always interested in his career, the way he got into WWE and stuff. So I'd always followed it, and he was always one of my favorites. And so I decided, hey, let me see if I can get in touch with this Maven guy, and just maybe we could do something. So I found Maven's LinkedIn, wrote out a brief but professional email, just explaining, hey, here's who I am, here's what I want to do, here's why I think it could be successful. If you're interested at all, I'd love to chat more. Send it out thinking, okay, one of two things is going to happen. He's either A, not going to respond, or B, say thanks, but no thanks. Fortunately, there was a third option, C, and he responded back a day later, said, "Hey, Zach, thanks for the email. I'd love to chat more about this. It sounds like an awesome idea." So from there, we got together. Maven and I had a few Zoom calls. I explained a little bit more about who I was, what I was looking, what I had, the idea I had. I got to know a little bit more about him. And then in May of 2023, I flew out to New Jersey, where Maven's located, got an Airbnb. We filmed our first, I think, 6 videos there, and went back, got them edited, and then July 21st, 2023, we posted our very first video. And I think after about like 2 weeks, that first video had started getting traction, started building a lot of momentum and getting comments and subscribers and everything. And then from there, we just knew we had something. And then really ever since that first video we posted in July 2023, Maven and I have always posted a brand new video every single Friday. Even this past Friday, we just posted a video. And then this coming Friday, we have another video already in the can, ready to get uploaded. And so between those are kind of my 2 biggest accomplishments in terms of reach that I've had is the Tap Up Corner channel, which I still do, and also the Maven Huffman channel, which again, we're doing new videos every week.
Yeah, and I love that, you shared with us that it took you 15 years of kind of figuring it out and starting and stopping and not knowing, and even with the channel. And I think a lot of smaller content creators like myself are even looking at a channel with 20,000 subscribers, like, man, that would be incredible to look at that. And it's time. You have to, and it's not just about the creation of the content and the style behind that, but like you said, the I guess they say like the business end of it, attracting new viewers and having the right descriptions and thumbnails and headlines and titles to everything. And I know that you're kind of a student of the game in that regard, and it's something that you're constantly keeping up with and following, I'm sure, in the analytics as well of what does better and what moves the needle. I love the evolution of the idea. Like Tap Out was already successful in what it was doing, but you're like, there's more here. There's more of a story to tell and to bring that out. And if it needs to be a separate channel, then so be it, right? Like if this isn't working on this channel, that doesn't mean that it's not working. It's just not working inside of the niche that essentially YouTube has put you in. You tried to start, YouTube's going to put you in a lane, and it's going to feed you to the people that it thinks are going to watch your stuff. And it can be difficult to grow if you are trying to change lanes. And that's something that I've found in what we're doing, in trying to provide a huge array of content with the scene projects. Initially I was kind of putting everything out on the one YouTube channel because I was like trying to grow one, right? I'm trying to get one to a couple of thresholds that we want to hit to even be available for monetization, right? A big one of those being the 500 subscriber level. But I didn't know enough about YouTube when I was starting out to realize, that I was actually doing myself a disservice in a lot of ways, going too many directions. What you really need to do is to just develop another channel and to let that grow. And now we're in this. That's why this, this conversation is being featured on our Real Biz channel and network rather than on the Scene Projects, where the Scene Projects is still the brand and is the umbrella over everything. That each, topic needs its own vehicle so that it can be put into a lane and fed out to that. And even then, it can take years of doing this for things to catch on. And I think that's something that in a age where everyone is chasing that viral moment, that they don't happen overnight.
Yeah. Even on the Tap Out Corner channel this week, there was a video that I had posted several months back, maybe even longer. It did, kind of all right, not great when I initially posted it, but now all of a sudden it's starting to tick up. I'm checking the analytics, like, oh wow, this video that I'd completely forgotten about is now picking up some steam. And it wasn't even, I didn't change the title or change the thumbnail. It just, kind of caught on. And so that's one thing with YouTube is like, I think a lot of creators, if you're in it long enough, you'll have that happen where a video you posted maybe months, maybe a year, maybe even 2 years ago will just suddenly just get picked up in the algorithm. And so it's, again, I like to say with YouTube, there's a lot of stuff in your control, but there's also a lot of stuff that's not in your control. The element of timing is always just one that's really hard, being in the right place at the right time. But at least with YouTube, you can, even if the video wasn't posted at the right time might come eventually, and then the video's already there. So, and that's where you see a video you posted a year ago, all of a sudden, oh wow, now it's picking up steam now. That's been over a year.
Yeah, you give me a lot of faith, building out this massive catalog, right? We had over 1,700 uploads onto our channel last year. Now, a lot of those are in short form, but we had over, I think, 400 long form videos that we posted in addition to the short form content. And the way that I always looked at, especially the scene projects, because we're interviewing independent artists, people that aren't, we're not dipping in and, we're not interviewing Jelly Roll. I like to use him as an example a lot, or Garth Brooks isn't coming on the show anytime soon. That we're not relying on those big names, but what we have provided is a platform for independent artists. And the reverse of that is that we've sunk our hooks into a whole lot of coattails that should any of those people get famous and people are all of a sudden searching for their name, that we kind of get picked up into that train as well. And I think that it was just a different way of building it out when we were kind of going through the growing pains of developing a YouTube channel. And I love that you kind of pointed out that you were essentially 15 years into creating content on YouTube before you really settled in, or maybe 10 years before you settled in and created the Tap Out Corner channel already. So you had already had a lot of experience built into that, and maybe it was in different arenas, right? Or different topics.
Yes.
The experience you were gaining behind the camera and then in post-production, editing, and all of those things, they were necessary to make Tap Out Corner as successful as it was kind of out of the gate, and then now well into the long term.
Yes, absolutely. Like, I uploaded my first video, I believe, in 2009. That was the very first YouTube video I ever uploaded. And, Tap Out Corner, which is, I'd say, my real big success, breakout success for YouTube wise, that was 2015. So, 6 years difference. And there was a lot, and like, maybe it could have come a little bit faster if I would have stuck with things a bit longer, rather than, because a lot of times what I do is I make a YouTube channel, upload a handful of videos. I'm bored with this. I don't know if I really want to talk about video games, or I don't know if I really want to make Lego stop motion animations, And
that sounds like a ton of work.
Yes, yeah. I actually did some with wrestling figures for a while. I used to do animations with wrestling action figures, have them do matches and stuff. And I did it for a few years, but then I just realized, this is a lot of work. So, God bless, and I huge respect to people who do stop motion animation, because it's a tedious, a long process you have to have a lot of patience for. So my hat's off to them. But the point being, even though I was starting and stopping a lot of YouTube channels, I was kind of halting my success, my progression, because, I wasn't sticking with it and just building something. You have to have a lot of key is just to have commitment, stick with it. You're not necessarily going to see success right away, but, if you're staying committed to it and continuing to post, continuing to try to get better, I think you're going to see better and better results. But the one thing, even though I wasn't doing that, the one thing that really helped, like you said, Bubba, was just learning more. I went from, I literally uploaded my first video. I didn't know about editing. I didn't know you could edit a video. So literally I hit record on the camera, hit stop, and then that's the video. There was no music, there's no editing, there's no, but through doing all these different YouTube channels, I learned, hey, you can upload video, you can film videos, you can put them together, you can cut out stuff, you can add text to your video, you can add effects, so even though I wasn't necessarily building a YouTube channel, I was learning a lot, which helped out with things like Tap Out Corner, and then later on the Maven Huffman channel.
Yeah, it's incredible to kind of hear your journey and what it's taken. For me, it is encouraging, because I think that we've moved a lot faster, and that nothing we've done because we never stopped is for naught, right? The Scene Projects just passed a pretty big milestone for us, really, in the first year of having a YouTube channel, where we reached that 500 subscriber mark, right? And a lot of other channels have been around for a decade and don't have that many, right? And granted, a lot of these people aren't in it to the same degree that we are, releasing sometimes multiple videos a week and putting these interviews out there. The mission is also different as well. It's never been about me monetizing a YouTube channel, right? It's been about how do I support as many independent artists as I can with that channel and put it out there. Now with other, now with Real Biz, it's more how do we support the people that are coming on here? Yes, we want to grow the subscriber base and we want these to be big, but I also realize that that can be a very long plan. So what can we do in the meantime to not just monetize the creation process, but to support the people that are coming on here and producing content for others that is there beyond entertainment value, maybe more in the edutainment value and just doing podcasts. And obviously your YouTube videos aren't really a podcast format, right? You're covering a lot of stuff. So talk a little bit about that and kind of go in depth with us on as far as like what the videos that you're releasing, on a weekly basis for Tap Out Corner go. I know the Maven show is a little bit different and we can address that one separately if you like.
Yeah. Tap Out Corner, it's evolved a lot more in subtle ways. The channel is basically the bread and butter is doing like list videos. One that I actually have currently being edited right now is the top 20 worst wrestling moves of all time. And so stuff like that. The one I just uploaded was about failed second, third, and fourth generation wrestlers and kind of almost like little mini documentaries documenting, The Rock's daughter and how, her career, what happened to her career and the sons of the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, how their careers went and where it went down. And so a lot of videos like that are kind of, so lists, videos sharing facts, videos sharing rankings, and somewhat like little mini documentaries. It's definitely evolved a lot. I say lists, but that is one thing that I don't do quite as much as I used to, just because the era of like list videos, top tens, like it's still very popular on YouTube, but I'd say it peaked a few years back. There was a time where top tens lists were massive. They were huge and really popular.
Well, and because of their popularity, the market starts to get flooded with people that are like, oh, this is going to be my ticket. I'm just going to do this.
Exactly. And so, that's one thing that's definitely changed. But those are I'd say my bread and butter with the Tap Out Corner channels. Usually getting a collection of stories, whether it's maybe documenting wrestlers' careers or doing some rankings, ranking moves or different aspects of wrestling. That's kind of what the bread and butter of the Tap Out Corner channel is.
Incredible. And then go ahead, and I know the Maven show is a pretty big deal for you as well. The other half of your time every month. So talk about that one and kind of the content you guys are putting out there.
Yeah, essentially it's Maven giving his insight, giving his behind the scenes knowledge on the wrestling business, on WWE. It's another one. We've been doing it for coming up on 3 years this year since we started the channel. And so that's obviously evolved a little bit. We did a lot more pulling back the curtain on stuff early on, but obviously when you're doing a video every single week, you're going to, we already talked about this. We already talked about that. So, but essentially a lot of it is Maven giving his insight on wrestling as someone who was a former wrestler. We did a video recently where Maven sat down and watched Monday Night Raw, which is WWE's weekly flagship show. And the whole hook, the whole reason to watch the video is you're getting someone who was actually a wrestler in WWE who wrestled on this very show, this very program, just breaking it down, letting you know, okay, here's what's going on, noticing things that the fan might not notice, but as someone who actually was in, backstage, was wrestling in that ring, that they might notice. I'm just giving his insight as a former wrestler on, what these current wrestlers, what does he like about them? What does he think they can improve on? And that sort of thing. And then even this past Friday, we did a video, just kind of sharing about some of the troubles WWE is facing with the direction the business is headed. Maven gave his thoughts on that. Obviously one of the big things in the wrestling world is ticket prices have really gone up, really skyrocketed. And, there's pros to that, there's cons to that. And there's some of those cons we might not see come to fruition until years later. And so, but a lot of the Maven channel is just Maven, being a former wrestler, sharing his insight into the business, breaking stuff down, and offering just insight that the typical fan might not have.
Is there any pushback from people inside of the industry? Because I would imagine that it is like a magician kind of revealing, watching other magicians do and go, this is how they did that, So I would imagine that some people inside of the industry, whether it's at the WWE level or, in their corporation, that are pushing back a little bit on it, or do they embrace it? And it's really the opposite of giving fans that in-depth look.
Gotcha. I feel like it's pretty neutral. Maybe actually gets asked that question a lot in his interviews. And from what I know, he's never, I haven't gotten any pushback, and I don't think Maven has ever gotten any pushback, except for one time, which I'll share a little bit. But typically, I think for the big thing too is a lot of this stuff is already out there. There's videos like the stuff I was doing on Tap Out Corner, and even now WWE on Netflix, they have a whole series called Unreal, where it's literally taking cameras backstage and showing, wrestlers out of character. They're talking about storylines, stuff that, even 20 years ago may have been kind of taboo. And so, but it's just the business. For the most part, wrestlers understand, hey, people know the mystique of the business isn't really there as much. People know that, we're performers, we're playing characters out there, and that sort of thing. And a lot of the stuff too is, stuff that's either A, you can already find out there, or B, if you just watch closely enough, you could probably figure out like, oh, hey, when a wrestler punches, they always stomp, stuff like that. And so for the most part, we haven't gotten any pushback. But there was one time we did a video where actually someone came up to us. It was kind of more of a vlog style, just what we call Maven in the Wild. And someone had said, just he didn't want to be in the video because he doesn't like that, we're exposing the business, which fair enough. No pushback. He was got polite about it. Wasn't confrontational or anything, but just he just wasn't a fan of exposing the business. Which again, 1000% respect. But I think that's the only time we ever had any sort of pushback for in the almost 3 years that we've been doing that. In fact, a lot of there was sadly right before he passed away, Sabu. This was last year at WrestleMania. Maven was doing an event. I came along just to film, just to see what we could get, and Sabu, who's a hardcore legend in the wrestling business, he was there. He came up to me and he obviously just hey, what's going on, brother? Saying hi, and he was saying, I love the videos, good job, and he was back when kayfabe was not exposing the business was very that was very important, very sacred, and even he was happy with the success and everything, and happy for Maven and everything. So yeah, no, not really any pushback, not so much.
No, and I don't feel like it's hurting the brand at all. Obviously, the brand is bigger than it's ever been, and you have multiple of them. Obviously, you have TNA and AEW, and you have all of these that seem to all be doing very well. Even the independent, our good friend Nick Stokey with Below Zero Wrestling up in North Dakota in a very small area is selling out arenas with their program. So people, I feel like admitting that it wasn't to the hardcore wrestling fan, it's not like we all believed that it was true to begin with. It doesn't make it any less entertaining, right? And I think that is the the driving factor between all of, we don't care, right? There's soap operas with violence, it's okay. And if we want to see real violence, we can go watch UFC or any other of the martial arts, and that's fine too. But really, it's about being invested in these characters and in this. And to me, I think it's okay. I think the transparency only helps build the brand, because now you're not treating your fans like they're idiots,
Yes,
and I
yes.
think that's we all get into this from different reasons, but I think a lot of us begin watching as younger, as children. I started watching WWF, dating myself a little bit here, in the early 90s. Saturday mornings they were on TV, and I would watch at my granny's house. And to watch how much they've grown since then. And we would go, and my granny, my mom's mom, grew up in Kentucky. So she was watching these guys in the, the small arenas and gymnasiums in the, 50s and 60s, right? So it's really incredible to see how much the sport has grown, to see how now it can provide a living for just a simple YouTube content creator
Yes.
like yourself, making videos about the sport. I think it's incredible that it's building out a living for these athletes, for these people that have grown to love the sport. And I don't find anything wrong with it. You're not doing something that somebody else wouldn't come along and do, right? It's not like you're the only one out here that's talking about it. Having someone that was inside of the industry, I think, is maybe a unique take on it, but I think is what separates you from the other creators out there, and that channel from everyone else is that, look, I'm not speculating here. I was in the room.
Yes, absolutely. And going back to your point too, like I always, if some people just have preferences, they just rather not, I'd just rather not, share this, or I prefer when wrestling was a little bit more believable. We didn't reveal everything to the fans. Like, I totally respect that. The one where I get pushback is if, this is, it's going to hurt the business in the long run. Fans, when they know how the sausage is made, they're not going to want to watch. I'd argue the opposite, 'cause we get comments on our videos, saying, when we get comments from people saying, I don't like wrestling, never watched wrestling, but I enjoy these videos. So new people getting exposed to wrestling, people who weren't even fans, don't watch wrestling, don't support wrestling, now checking out our videos that can hopefully lead to them watching Monday Night Raw, watching Dynamite, AEW's flagship show, and just go and check out local shows in their area. And as well as we also do get comments from people saying, like, this makes me want to watch wrestling more. I want to watch wrestling now that I've watched these videos. And I think it comes down to just once you see how the sausage is made, it makes you appreciate it a bit more. Same with the behind the scenes of a movie. You see the finished product and maybe it's just, okay, that, looks impressive, but, I'm assuming it's just all done in computers. But when you see the behind the scenes and how tedious and how hard some of these stuff is to accomplish, it makes you a bit more appreciative. You're just a little bit more invested, and that, leads to, okay, I want to see the final product a bit more now because I see all the steps, the trials and tribulations that wrestlers have to go through and how much they have to go, how much planning and preparation goes into even just a simple match, much less an elaborate match where there's, crazy spots and they're, jumping off 20-foot ladders, what are they doing to not kill themselves doing that, And
yeah, it almost, to me, it makes it more interesting to be like, even though it's choreographed, like you still have to stick it. Right?
Yes.
Like we watch figure skating in the Olympics and it's all choreographed too, but you still got to land it. Right.
Yes.
Now you got guys out there throwing backflips in their routines, and, guys have been doing that off the top ropes, 15 feet in the air, landing on, and another human being has to catch them. Right. And then it's into the next, and it's incredible. It's an incredible dance that these wrestlers and, these athletes are doing inside of the ring and sometimes outside of the ring. It's incredibly hard on their bodies. And I think that the more you let people in, the more they like it. And as an interviewer-based, podcaster, which I don't necessarily consider you a podcaster truly, you're a YouTuber, right?
Yeah,
in the more pure sense of the word, where I am a podcaster who has a show on YouTube, I feel like. Distinctions being what they are. I don't know that it matters as much as it did even, 5 years ago, but that I would love to talk to these people, right? And getting the out of character interviews and just talking. And that's something that, on our Scene Project Sports Network that our co-host Boo Boo has done with Beyond the Bell, which is exactly that. It's talking to, independent wrestlers that are working in much smaller arenas and much smaller promotions, but getting the stories behind the people and what sparked that. And to me, these are some of the most interesting stories in the world. Why wouldn't we want to tell them?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And that's like the thing where obviously it helps when they're big stars. You have that built, like you talked about, Bubba, there's that built-in audience, when you have a big star like Liv Morgan or Roman Reigns, just you have people that are going to go out of their way to watch it. With a independent star, they might have a little bit of a following, but obviously nowhere near the following that those folks have. And that's one of the things I do like with the Maven channel. Like, obviously Maven had a bit of a following, being in WWE, but when we started, he had been out of WWE for close to 20 years, and he had a little bit of an independent career, but he kind of drifted away from wrestling. And so that was one of the exciting things, is being able to get comments from people that say, I didn't watch you when I didn't watch you when you were wrestling, but I watch you now. Or even people who say like, I didn't care about you when you were in wrestling, but I love, your channel now. I'm trying to basically build a new fan base for people. That's one of the things I really, really like. And, it's tougher for an independent wrestler to build that fan base because they don't have the WWE machine. They don't have the WWE brand behind them. But, I think it's still is possible. It's harder. It's much, much harder. But I don't think it's impossible. And I love just in general seeing that, not just with people and athletes and performers, but even stuff like an example I always bring up is Cobra Kai, the Netflix series. It's obviously based off Karate Kid, which, big show, a big movie franchise in the 80s, but, it kind of faded out. It was still, part of pop culture, but it would just, there wasn't any new movies. It kind of died down. And then they start this new show, Cobra Kai, and it, they build new fans with it. It's not just, the people who grew up with Karate Kid. There's people who didn't even know Karate Kid existed, but they watched like Cobra Kai. And so that's one of my kind of favorite things with like the Maven channel is being able to not just rely on like the people who remembered Maven and still followed his career, but also being able to bring in new people and build new fans, build a whole new audience.
Yeah, and I'm sure a blessing for him to be able to dip back into the wrestling world, having, kind of retired from it for a couple of decades. So incredible, Zach. Anything, obviously, plug the YouTube channels where people can find you and find the shows, and I'll let you get out of here today.
Awesome. Sounds good. I appreciate this conversation, Bubba. The place to check me out is Tap Out Corner on YouTube. That's my channel. And then also the Maven Huffman channel on YouTube. That's where we upload a new video every Friday. So if you're into wrestling, check both those out.
Yeah, and if you're you need to do some content creation videos, I think, and maybe start a new channel, start helping out young creators like myself who could always use some tips along the way and some encouragement because it's not everyone who can stick with it. And I think the biggest part, biggest takeaways for me of your story is that it took a long time to happen, and it took a lot of learning, and it still is a lot of learning and watching and adjusting to trends and being able to evolve. And, in many ways, the Maven Huffman show is an evolution of what you want to do with Tap Out Corner. It's just that it made more sense to start a new channel and to work on that separately than to just slam everything into one channel. So I'm absorbing a lot of advice today, just kind of as an aside to a great conversation. So Zach, appreciate you, man. Congratulations on all your success. 1 million subscribers is no joke. That's really incredible for an independent creator. And keep on going, man. We're so proud of you, and a fellow South Dakotan as well. I think we kind of glossed over that a little bit, but for a small town kid, which I would consider Sioux Falls in a lot of ways, is still a small town on the grand scale of things. To do what you're doing and creating content out there in the world and finding a home for yourself is so cool, man. So thanks for being on the show today, and thank you for being part of the scene.
Yeah, I can't. Thank you so much, Bubba, for all that. Thanks for having me on. I wish you all the best as well.